Good morning, Night City! Today we have another exciting episode of Weekend Workshop, number 29. How was that intro, guys?
Really
Amazing.
good.
Too over the top or just perfect? Okay, so few things to go through. So Andy, a couple of weeks ago you were talking about, I guess it was last week you were saying like if we could pass parameters to components in the loading, like when you load a scene, if you could have like some parameters that were passed on to the components that they can interpret. And the way it was described didn't really make sense to me, but then it occurred to me that we oftentimes use an extra object as an argument in many of our functions. I could find an example here, but I'm not going to look for it right now. But oftentimes we'll just use an object, like the base object of all objects, and pass that as an extra parameter. And then when the function that receives it can cast that to whatever class it's expecting, and then interpret that data. And so I was thinking that would actually be a great way to address the issue that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So I think oftentimes it's really great to not. I love having these discussions with you guys because oftentimes it's good to like start talking about something and don't write your code like right away when you're trying to figure something out. A lot of times it's good to like start thinking and talking about something in advance, and then you'll be taking a shower or something and it'll occur to you that what the proper course of action is. And when you do that, like you just save yourself, it ends up like saving a lot of time. So oftentimes we'll like discuss a feature like weeks or even in months in advance, and then that way we can sort of work out the design, and then when we're ready to code it, then we know that we've sort of like ran through all the ramifications of it in our mind, and we can write our code and have the right decision being made. So do you think that will address the issue that you raised?
I think that's a good idea, yes.
Okay, cool.
So you could store all the information you need, for example, in this one object and pass it. I think it's great, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then it also occurred to me. I think I figured out how I want we were talking about automatically inserting CPP component files into the Visual Studio project, and I figured out I don't want it to act as a precompiler. And I don't want it to be something in the editor that detects changes to the file system and responds to that. Instead, what I think I want is for that information to be added to the Visual Studio project files, which are XML files. At the time, when the project is created, I want to add all the components into the Visual Studio project files. And then also when a new component is downloaded is installed into the project that's downloading. Like from the download system that we're working on. Like here. This system is like fully capable of becoming our like marketplace thing. I think I'm gonna add a field here to indicate the install location.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not up there right now, but it'll be like materials, particles, and then that way you don't have to have the whole folder structure defined in the zip file. You can just do it the way that everybody does, and then the editor will automatically detect where it's supposed to be installed. But at the time that this system installs a component, that's when it will also add a component into the Visual Studio project. So I think that's really the best. That way it's not going crazy, like doing a lot of additions and modifications to these XML files, which is kind of scary and dangerous, but it performs the action you want at the appropriate time. And also, and the third case would be, this is still updating, when you actually add a new custom component into the project, then we can automatically insert it at that time. I think that's really the best. That's going to be the best way to do this.
Right. Yeah, because one problem I'm having right now is like you're like a lot. I have like in the X-Form project, you have like a lot of CPG files that are just like there. They're not like organized correctly in the filters, and I have some references to files I don't have. Okay. So if we could, yeah. So I'm just like thinking about like something you have to think about is like what happens if the person is not the only programmer on the team, or the only C++ programmer, because how one can set one. How I see like now like a good way of setting a project up is that you have a C++ programmer and then you have a Lua programmer, and this way you can still like do things, but you don't step on each other's shoes. But what happens now if there's two C++ component programmers? Because now it's like,
well, how is a component added to a project? It's either created anew because it's a new component, or
it's manually done.
No, not manually. Well, yeah, but I think we want to move towards not manually inserting those. I think we want to move towards using this system. So you'll just install it in the editor, and it'll be part of the install process.
Well, what happens if you like what we're making a game and you add a component, but you just throw it in the solution because you're just testing things out, and then, or you move something and you don't update. It's like, oh, we don't need this component. This was just a test. You delete it, but it's still referenced in my solution file. So
yeah.
I don't know. Like my solution, I know. Yeah, my solution, I know it's not going to be your solution. My solution is just to write a pre-make file, and every time you add or remove a component, pre-make runs. That's how I would solve that problem.
Yeah, that sounds off. This pre-make generates at the Visual Studio project?
Yeah, it generates.
Oh no, dude, don't do that.
Why not?
Because if you do any changes to the Visual Studio project, those are going to get lost.
Well, no, because it just generates the Visual Studio project. It just overrides everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What if you change some Visual Studio setting that Premiake does not support, or that you don't expect to, or you don't go back and fix the
Yeah, I think that's something you want the end user to make that decision, not something you want to do for them.
Yeah.
Like, that's like something I would do on my end, but I don't think it's a wise decision for you to put that on your customers.
Yeah.
So there's like that issue.
Yeah. So okay. We can make this easier. We have a few options. Let's just leave it at that for now, and come back to it when we're ready. Let's see. So, yeah, the decal system is basically done. Oh yeah. Okay, so the fact that I keep using a sewer lid as my example is an indication that decal materials are hard to find. Like I can't find any except textures.com. But we've got all the blending is working correctly. I mean, you probably wouldn't want it to be this like shiny and saran wrappy. But this does show you have the roughness is being blended. What's this?
Edge artifacting.
Yeah, we might need this texture might need UV clamping.
No, was this on your AMD machine? Was
Yeah.
Yep, that's an AMD issue. Lightworks does the same thing. If you play Cyclone on an AMD chip, you'll see the same results on the indicator strips and everything.
Yeah, and it has to do with the. We had another conversation about this about what the hell is that called? The something group, the invocation group,
Mm.
and there are some ways around that. You just have to structure the code a little bit differently. I'll take a closer look at that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's like a more of an AMD thing. On the video, be fine. I have
well,
seen no edge.
yeah. Um, yeah, I've never seen it on NVIDIA. But anyways, the blending here is very nice. Um,
Hmm.
and so it supports color, normals, metal roughness, emission, and so that's basically done. We might come back and improve it a little bit, but I've moved on. I've actually started
Hmm.
particles yesterday.
Right.
They're not appearing yet because I need a custom shader, but they are there, and they've got some very nice icons.
Hmm.
Very cool. So I don't think this will actually take very long at all. Um, let's
So
see.
I was looking at what you posted on. You said you want to do like flip books and because I was like trying to like understand like where you want to go with the particle system because you experimented years ago, you know, using it to push physics objects and and then you posted on the downloads form a flipbook sequence
No, that's just
or something.
I think those is just an animation sequence. So we also discussed on the forum or Discord. We also kind of agreed that we want to move all. I think we want to make all 2D textures a. We want to make them into array textures, and that way, animation will be easily supported. Also, skinning will be easily supported. Um,
Right.
we're not going to do that right now, but that's just a thing in the future we're planning to do. I don't think there's any downsides to that. Um, I do want to discuss some of this stuff.
Oh, the Doom stuff since their SDK released.
Yeah, so this is the stuff I was looking for last week before my hard drive space ran out on the laptop and I had to cut the video short. But this does show heavy use of decals, and I believe our system will be able to. I believe our system can support the same hundreds of decals should be no problem. But this gives you an idea of how Doom heavily uses decals. And I don't think they even bake them into the texture. I think they just leave them for the final render.
Yeah. One thing I'm concerned about is like the amount of like how tedious all that's going to be.
Uh,
Because right, because again, right now the only way to create decals is that you put a decal in the scene, you change the material. I kind of like the approach where we saw last week, where you just drag and drop something and it became a decal, or you know what I mean.
need a new
Also,
project here.
yeah. Also, one thing of feedback is that I was actually looking at some videos of the Doom SDK that came out, and I really like that that the material preview is actually the image and not just a sphere. I can't really make out
You mean
if
it's
that makes
flat?
sense. Yeah,
We could try that.
yeah, but the only thing, the only conflict is that you can't how you distinguish an image from a material in the asset browser now.
That's true. How do they do it?
I don't think they show source files or texture files in the
Yeah.
but you see like when I write I would like to just drag and drop like that. It's like, oh, that looks cool, that's what I need. And but if it's a ball or something, um it's like harder to like actually see what that texture what that material is. And
Yeah.
also it would speed up the thumbnail generation if you
Uh,
were to do that.
well,
So
that's if you're yeah, but a base color texture is not always a good representation of the material.
Yeah, but as I said last week, you could create an inheritance from the material and make, yeah, call it something like decal and just show there the 2D texture.
Well, he's talking about like just for he's not talking about decals. I don't think. I think he's just talking about
well,
materials in general.
both decals and material, regardless if it's a decal or a wall material,
I think
it's
for material the ball is the best.
yeah, but it's kind of hard to see like what it actually is. I like maybe instead of a ball, it could be like the cube preview. I don't know. It's just something that like I was looking at the Doom stuff,
Yeah.
and that just seems like much better because it's like, oh, I know what I'm gonna get when I drag and drop this material on this brush.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, so that's just food for thought. I don't know what the solution is.
Okay.
I also agree that the drag and drop for the decal is way easier than it is
Braving
right
it.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way we're doing it right now, we have
Hmm. You have to
what's
create a
what's nice
box.
about yeah what's nice about this is it gives you very fine control, and that is nice.
That is nice, but like let's say you have like a square texture or something, you should just be able to drag and drop it, and it should just uniformly be the right size
Yeah.
based on the textile, and yeah, it should just be like that.
So you're saying just like by default, when you drag
Like
something like
like
that, it'll just create the right size,
yeah, but I
and
do
then
also
there and
like
then thereafter, it'll be treated like it is now as an entity.
yeah, yes, and
That might be
then
the okay.
yeah, and then I also but you still keep like the old way because you might want to make like hazard strips and you want to be able to like
Yeah, I mean,
like
being able to do this kind of stuff is very useful.
I also think that you need an extra material type for the decals. Otherwise, you can't drag and drop the material to a brush anymore.
Yeah,
So
and
you would need to, yeah, make a right click on a solid on a base color texture, and then, yeah, can you do it maybe? And right click to an texture in the not here
wait,
in the
what?
browser and editor. Yeah, and then you have generate material, and then you would need the second option, generate decal or something below the material.
generate decal material, generate
Yeah,
growth material or something.
Or you could just have a checkbox in here that says like treat as decal,
Right. And
and have
then
some like default dimensions
uh,
for the decal.
I was just thinking just the textile size of the texture would be just enough.
Maybe based on the well, I mean
Yeah.
we have the mapping resolution here, and then you might still want like well, you might want like a scale multiplier of that.
Yeah, maybe a scale multiplier just in case like, oh, my artist gave me a 1024 by 1024, but it only is useful half the size or a quarter of the size. So
Yeah.
instead of going to GIMP, I'll just scale it right here. Probably should scale it in GIMP because you're still loading all those pixels into memory,
Yeah.
but then again, it might be a better quality image because it's a higher in resolution.
Okay. That's probably a good yeah, I mean I'm sort of like probably agreeing with that. I'm just wondering like is there going to be something after that then people say, well, you also need to do this.
Ah, no, because with decals, probably not, but like the other aspect is like vertex painting, but that's not decals.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think.
That is something else I want to talk about. Okay, so decals, cool. The whole thing with
Mhm.
decals is you need good artwork, and I can't find any decals textures. I can't find any
Um.
stuff like this, which would be very cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I was gonna offer. It's like, oh, you could just pull the textures off of Cyclone and play with those, but I don't have like space age stuff like here.
this is really cool stuff, though, and also textures.com has some very nice, like, wall like torn away, exposed brick type stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an opportunity if anybody wants to put up a DLC of decal materials. I think that's actually something that would sell really well because everybody needs it. So that's something to think about. The other thing that is interesting that it does is they have material painting on everything, and it's done per vertex.
Mhm.
But this is an idea I already had, and then like seeing an implementation of it, of something similar to what I was thinking is very cool. But my idea was to take the terrain painting system we have that's so great that allows you to paint 256 materials onto the terrain. We could
Right.
extend that to every object in the scene. You could
That would be
have
nice.
unique detail everywhere. And you're painting, whether it's vertex or it's an unwrapped texture, like basically like a light map. It's the pixels that indicate the data that indicates what material is used is relatively low resolution, so it's not like anywhere near uh, as much data as like mega textures are. It's just like these vertices here, they indicate that this material should be used. It doesn't store every single pixel here. It just says it's like the terrain system. It just says use this material in this area. But I can do that, and I think it would be really, really kick ass.
Yeah, and it'll help hide replicated models and such, so it won't look like a Lego set kind of.
I think it
Everything will
does
just
two
be.
things. I think one is it hides repetition.
Themes. Yeah.
Let's see. There's an image here that shows it pretty well.
Mhm.
It hides repetition because it gives you this like unique detail everywhere. And the other thing it does is it gives you cohesion of the scene. Because if you look at anything indies do, it always looks like this first frame here, where you just have these like clean edges between these different objects,
Mhm.
and the objects all look pretty good. But I think AAA studios have to put a lot of effort into making the whole scene sort of blend together so you can't see the distinct objects. Like a lot of good artwork is hiding the patterns so that your eye just can't see the patterns so easily. So
Yeah, and
an indie scene is going to look like this first frame.
yeah,
It looks good, but it's like you can
Clean.
clearly not just clean, but like
Yeah,
it's
but
there doesn't seem to be any. It looks like a collection of individual objects, and you kind of want to get away from that.
yeah, and if you were to paint like the grime in the texture, you'll get replicative like grime, and it won't look as natural. That's
You would
but
have to
it's
put, yeah, the AAA studios, they have to put a lot of effort into
mhm.
making texture sets that sort of fit together. Like they would have like a blend texture between this surface and this surface, and they have to
Right.
put a lot of effort into making sets of textures. And what we tend to do, what we tend to do is we just download all these PBR models and we put them into a scene, and it looks like an IKEA display or something. Like
Right.
there's
And all-
no continuity at all.
There's no continuity, and all of them are like spotless, like factory fresh.
Well, even if we use like dirty ones, there's no consistency between them. Like there would be, if you use this on a wall. I wish their website was load faster. If you use that on a wall and that on a floor, there's absolutely no consistency between those two surfaces.
And that's like what I'm concerned about the game project is like.
Yep, that's what I'm getting to. But if you
Also,
can,
I have
what's that?
I also have the problem that if you try to make something like an Abaddon world or something like this, and if you have it looks too clean. If you look at the houses, I posted a screenshot, not this, the last one, on the most recent one. It looks too clean, the houses, the walls, so you could make some dirt on the walls or something else.
Yeah, you could. So yeah, you do. I mean, it's not clean. You have some repeating textures. You have
Yeah,
some
yeah.
repeating detail there. We could hide that. You could put like a big stain going down the whole wall on this side. Over here, you could have like a splotch here and a splotch here. Have some stuff up here to hide the repetition, and just have like unique detail.
Yeah,
Um,
this would be amazing.
and
But also I feel Vertex Paint is more important in other engines because other engines don't have the BSP system like you have. So they have to create like a lot of like kits, like building kits,
yeah,
and then they instead of using brushes, they have to use like wall pieces and window pieces to
yeah. So you
put
can
it
only
all
create
together.
like what the artist allows you to create.
Yeah, and then so to make everything less look like a Lego set, they add vertex painting and decals to blend everything in better.
Well, and okay, so we talked about repetition, and we saw that, but it would also be if you just ran a brush along this corner here, it would look so good because you'd have like this dirt like crawling up the wall and also
Yeah,
going
moss
out
or
this way.
something. Also, or moss or something like
Yeah.
this. So yeah,
Yeah, and it would make these surfaces look like they're connected in a way that they currently it currently does not. And it doesn't matter how good your texture is here. So I think AAA's, they put a lot of effort, and you can do it with decals to some extent, but it would still take a long time to place all that stuff. But if you just ran a brush along here, it would be so easy to make, all along the sidewalk here, along these edges. It would be so easy to like along here where the street meets the dirt and the grass. You could do something here. It would be it would be like effortless, and I think we would end up having. I think it would be like something we've never seen before. I think it would be amazing results.
but you can add this easily to models and all this stuff.
Not easily, but I can do it. I think I could do it in about 6 weeks of work. So this is probably like something I'm talking about. Like this is probably like the first feature I would want to do in version 1.1. But yeah, like
Right.
everything you're seeing here, I could totally do that because it would just be using our terrain system, and ours would actually be better than what it is doing because I think they're limited to 8 materials that you have to predefine for each mesh, which is a pain. And ours would work like the terrain system where you just select the material and paint wherever you want. In fact, the way I would do this is I would get rid of the terrain paint tool, and instead I would just have a paintbrush up here as a tool, maybe on the right here.
Uh,
And when
this is not a good idea.
yeah, you select that, and when it's selected, then you get a display like this, and you select the paint, and that will work for terrain,
But
but it will also work for everything.
this is not a good idea, and I can tell you why. So you
Why?
need two extra tools. Because I think if you remove it from the terrain, then you just draw on everything, and it's hard to control where you draw or where you want to draw. I think you should leave the terrain tool for only terrain painting, and then the new tool for painting on top of everything.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like,
Otherwise, it's hard to draw. If you only want to draw the terrain and then the model is in the way, then yeah, it's kind of hard to control because you draw with a circle, and yeah.
Well, we might have like an option. We might have like some kind of filtering system where you can select what types of objects get drawn on, or maybe just only the picked object gets modified. Because sometimes you just want to pick one object and modify it, and sometimes you want to, or something like that. We can just try it and see.
I think you really want to have an extra tool and leave the terrain painting.
Okay, we'll try it. Let's try it
yeah,
both ways
and
and just see.
yeah, I would do the duplicate first because I think instead of destroying what you already built,
That's
I
yeah,
think
that's probably easier too.
yeah. Yeah, but I agree. If it'll be great if it was just a separate tool, and then you could just say, "Oh, I just want like these models or these brushes or these objects to receive the vertex painting," and and then nothing else gets affected. So it will work differently than the current terrain system.
Yeah, but
Also, maybe you want to have some kind of different brushes. Like at the moment, our brush is a circle. And when you look at Unity, for example, you can set black-white textures to define an brush
yeah,
for the
that could be good
painting.
for like if you're in a corner, if you're working, trying to get like a sharp
Or
edge.
you could support brush types where they're just a monochromatic texture, and then it's just a gradient. So the end user can just make their own brushes.
This
I'm
is what
actually
it is.
thinking the mesh painting for mesh painting. I'm actually thinking it might be more like a sphere because it goes in all directions.
Maybe.
But basically, like this system here, if we could just paint like that on every single surface, I think that would be so. I think that would be a total game changer.
Yeah.
Without, I know there's like things where you can like define, two materials and blend between them on a per mesh basis, but it's not very convenient. But just being able to select a material and say, okay, paint this here, paint this there, I think that would be a total
Add a
game
new
changer.
layer. Paint this on top of this layer because it's all about layering.
Not exactly. It's not. They're not rendered in layers actually. Um,
Yeah, but how an artist approaches it, you know what I mean? There's like, okay, this is like the ground layer. This is like,
yeah.
not like a rendering, like the technical side, but like how an artist sees it. It's
Okay.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put like this layer, and then I'm gonna put like, then I'm gonna put like the lava layer on it, and then
But I think it would be effortless, and it would give us like crazy cohesion in the scene that is very difficult to achieve otherwise.
right.
Especially if you're downloading random PBR materials. But this seems like a system where we wouldn't have to have a lot of specialized materials that were designed to work together. We could just yeah,
Use whatever.
I think it would be awesome.
Now, would this be something that would be exposed in the API? Because you and I talked about like the idea of like paint splash.
What the heck just happened? You guys there?
Happen.
I don't know. I hit Control 0 because I thought that was gonna like zoom this back to the default,
And Discord crashed.
and I left. No, it kept running. I just left the room, I guess.
Uh,
I don't know why that happened, but anyways.
Pull your screen back up, and I was discussing what we were talking about water splats and paint splats, and maybe even blood splats, where maybe the Vertex paint will be a better system for that instead of decals.
Yeah, I think for like what you were showing me with the water, with the paint splatters, I think that the
Yeah.
painting system would be very, very good for that. For blood splatters, I think probably you want individual decals because those tend to be a very detailed shape in a very, I mean,
Right.
unless you're just like, unless you're making a chainsaw attack simulator game, I don't think the whole room is going to be like painted.
Well, you were showing me like the killing floor where like the head explodes and then like the blood rains down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that would be like a good way because the blood would just accumulate instead of overlapping with each other.
Yeah,
Much
I
like-
also don't know how good it's going to look like if it's dynamic. Let's take a look.
Mhm.
It's hard to guess.
Yeah, because the paint splats in Portal 2 don't like multiply. They kind of just do what you're doing here. They just add to it and
Well,
subtract from it.
I think what they do it's basically like marching cubes in 2D. So like each one of these, if you have like a grid here, let's say each one of these has a value that says like painted or not painted, and then and depending on the values of the surrounding tiles, it selects a texture. So it could select like an edge texture and then a curve here, and then a curve this way and a curve this way, and then a straight edge this way.
And each like cube gets like an intensity value to like how much it's painted on.
Yeah, and then whether it's an L curve or an edge or a centerpiece, in which case it's just a solid color. I think that's what's going on.
Right. Well, that's also on a like using like the BSB tree and everything, but here we can just paint it on. So
Yeah, the system I'm suggesting would be a lot better than that, actually.
yeah, a lot more modern.
Yeah. So I think I really like that idea. Okay, let's see. Decals. Okay. Xform. Okay, so there's two things going on. Two things have changed with this project. Initially, we thought our weapons were going to be the hardest part, and I thought we were going to be like struggling just to get like 2 weapons up, like just somehow finding that, and I thought that was going to be the hardest part. And it turns out we have a plethora of high quality view models that fit together cohesively, that look the same, use the same arms. They're great quality. We know we've done 3 of them now. I mean, they had some problems initially, but we know how to fix them now, and we've done it with 3 of them with success. So I have high confidence that the rest of them will work. Okay, so we've got like 15 models. We have like 15 weapons, something like that. And at the same time, we've also have this material painting system that we just talked about. That looks extremely promising way for indie developers to deliver AAA game levels without a lot of effort. So with those 2 pieces of information, I'm kind of thinking it might make more sense for us to focus more on making like a weapons DLC with all those weapons. And a test level that looks more like, let's see, what's that game called? What's the SCP game that?
It's so many of them. Let me find out.
What's the good one?
I'm gonna look in our chat. Just give me a second.
The multiplayer one. It's not Containment Breach.
SCP-087. Though that's a VR Survivor one.
Oh no, it does have a number in it. It's like
there's
SCP 6000 or something like that.
There's SCP-5K Arena 12.
Yes, that's it. 5K test level. Let's. Okay, they're not going to show us what I want to see. There's a map in there that's it's sort of like it's a little bit more abstract, and it's like their test area where you can fire guns and kill some enemies. I can't find it right now.
Yeah, that's the modern internet.
Yeah, I never find what you're looking for. But I'm wondering, like, what if we, instead of making one level of a game, what if instead we focus on making 15 weapons? Because we've got like grenade launcher, we've got 2 sniper rifles, we've got 3 pistols, we've got a grenade launcher so we can do explosions. What if we focus instead of level design right now, we focus on making good explosions and making these reusable weapons?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what people. I think they want like an example game only to see like how to do things, but if we compartmentalize everything and say, oh, this is like how weapons should work in Ultra Engine. This is how this should work in Ultra Engine. And then the finale should be one DLC that has like everything in it. And then that's like to tie it all together. That will show like how to do levels and how to like properly set probes and how to do like sound cues and all that. But I think people right now just want to make their game, and supplying good quality view models, world models, sounds, and component code will be much more useful.
Well, yeah,
right
the thing is, in probably less than 6 months, we'll be able to go back and, without a lot of effort, we'll be able to throw out some materials into a scene, and then just paint in all the corners and paint some dirt and stuff, and that gives it that cohesion that's going to be hard to create otherwise.
Yeah, because the stuff you want to do is a little bit off because you want to do the vertex painting and everything, so our maps don't look flat. And also, I kind of also want that baked in like ambient occlusion kind of thing that we discussed, so we don't have to rely on screen space ambient occlusion, or else I just don't want these scenes to look flat. And I think those two systems features will actually help a lot.
Yeah, I think the material painting I think will just, instead of struggling and because I mean, just like, let's just like picture this is like some yard. Instead of struggling trying to put a bunch of models in to populate it, and then trying to place a bunch of decals by hand, this would be so easy to just draw in the corners and then draw like some different patches of materials.
Yeah. Well, what we can do is just, it's like, oh, like this, like the office area. Oh, it's plaster walls, it's carpet off tile floors, it's plaster ceiling. All right. But that's what the world is made of, but it will look flat because office is supposed to look boring.
Well, it'll look like the different surfaces have no connection between them.
Right. But there's also a collapsed elevator that's on fire, and and the damage and carnage that will cause, and we have to blend the debris with the clean materials, and we have to make everything look like it belongs to each other.
Yeah, I think it's not even like necessarily like realistic, but I think what it will do is it'll trick your eye to where you can't really see where one object ends and another begins. And that's
Right.
that's I've noticed a lot with like vegetation. Like that's really like the key to good artwork is just tricking your eye so you can't distinguish exactly what's what.
Right. No, but I agree. I think instead of worrying about building a game right now, we have to worry about building the parts of what make it a game.
What do you think, Andy?
I think both is a good idea, but
What's
the level design will take maybe a bit longer than to make just the DLC. I think the DLC is a great idea.
Yeah, I think with the level design, like I think we'll be able to deliver a much better quality result with much less effort once the material painting is in.
Yeah, that's true. So you could make some smoke when there's a fire and you have clean walls. This is not really matching. So you need to make black walls then where the fire is burning and all the stuff.
Yeah,
So I think
I mean we
I
Yeah.
think
could.
if you really want to make a high quality level, then you should exactly wait for the painting feature if you already decided to put it into the engine.
Yeah.
I
Well,
could be
also
like
that
I'm just imagining it, but I'm like totally sold on the idea.
Yeah, and also where the level design is also waiting on a lot of other things to be implemented and finished too. So I think instead of just putting the entire project on hold, I think it's best that we make things and put it out there so people can start using it as soon as possible.
Yeah, so
And
instead we're focusing on like making these filling the functionality of these weapons out a bit more. I think we can start with like
Yeah.
a small terrain and make this yard with like walls on every side. And then we'll have a building here or a few buildings that's like
Hmm.
and if you think a bit wider than just only painting, I'm not sure how hard it is, but you could make this also volumetric. So, for example, if you want to paint snow all over the scene, you could make it a bit
Hmm.
volumetric, and then you could have
tessellation.
some, with tessellation,
Yeah.
and then you have snow or make lava or something like this.
Yeah, that'll be dope, dude, cuz you'll be able to
Yeah.
like it'll work with the tessellation displacement. So you can paint here and you'll have like details like coming out of the walls and stuff.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it'll be awesome.
No. No, but I was
This is how the Snowdrop engine works from Ubisoft.
Oh, cool.
Or you paint, for example, snow. You have multiple layers, and you can enable and disable them. So if it's snowing, then not the whole scene is full with snow. So you can activate layer by layer in order to fill up the scene with snow.
Why do they call it Snowdrop?
Because you can make snow with it.
yeah, but I was looking at I was listening to what you said, but yeah, I think what we should do is we should work on the weapon system, and then we use the free nature DLC pack to make like a shooting range kind of map, and then we just we set up some targets, and then we just let the player go off, pick items, cycle through them, fire each one, to just play with them,
Yeah.
and that will be the DLC.
I would like to have, so we can use like the abstract materials for the building walls. I would like to have a finished door here because that's something I do want. I'd like to have a finished door. I'd like to have some finished railing.
Do you know? Did you ever see the CS:GO like tutorial map? It's
Probably.
Yeah, I want like something like that you can you can like run through. You go into a building. You're told it shows you how to like. It shows you about like the It's gonna be very hard. Let me see if I can find it. But it allows you to it starts you in and has you like walk through like a map. Let me see if I can find this.
Yeah, it was an old map, but I think it's 10 years ago. They patched it really fast out because no one was using it.
Well, they replaced the entire game, so.
Yeah, I know, but even in CSGO, I mean, I played 5,000 hours this game. The map wasn't there anymore, so.
I like the demo, the testing level they have in this. I'll install it today and post some screenshots for you guys.
I want to find that map.
I'd like to have I also want to have like that zombie mutant thing. I don't know why I like Killing Floor so much, but I feel like it's kind of like the enemies are sort of generic.
I just can't. I hate this. Why can't I not find it?
That's okay.
No, but I thought that would be good because because there will be like simple doors and all that, but it's just an idea of like what we can do. Because do we think we should have like an inside shooting range and like an outside shooting range kind of thing?
Okay, but we'll be able to deliver like a lot more weapons, and we can just focus more time on making the weapons feel really good. Like making the bullet marks look really good, making the explosion feel right. Getting the right sounds.
You also want some recoil.
What's that?
You also want some recoil.
Yeah.
I mean, if the weapon is just a laser without recoil, it's not feeling good at all.
Well, the animations, I mean, the weapon animations have that.
Yeah, the animation, but the crosshair is still in the same place.
Oh, so you mean like shaking the camera?
Shaking the camera or moving the crosshair a bit, yes.
Yeah.
I think I moved the camera in my system a bit, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those animations might actually include the camera motion in them. I think there's a bone for where the camera's supposed to be.
Well, we can also. I actually think that should be adjustable by the weapon component.
Yeah. Yeah, amount of that would be pretty cool if you could adjust like the amount of recoil, and then it sort of like gives some randomness to the camera rotation and kind of disorients. It would give you a little disorientation when you fire, and it would also make you feel like it would make it feel more solid.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's revise our plan, and then we'll put that. And the author of that, I mean, he actually told me I could just like distribute all those models for free with the engine. I'm gonna offer him to like maybe we can go back to okay. So like two things we can do. One is like export all his models as working FBX files once they're fixed, because he doesn't have that right now, and that would be helpful. That would be useful to him because then he can sell them in other places. And then also like I'll offer him like I'll tell him like, hey, if you want to put this up on your Steam account as a DLC for our product, you can just take all the money from Valve because we're so grateful for your help. If he just doesn't want to deal with it, then other options. But it sounds like that's not a problem, and he's easy to work with.
You should ask him if he wants to join the team. Maybe.
Yeah.
He's a great modeler, so he could maybe even make some custom stuff for the DLC then.
He's not actually accepting custom work right now, but he's very generous with everything that he has created. So I think he lives in Eastern Europe, I think. And I think he's just like busy 24/7 with so many requests that he's got, because he is a talented guy. So we can also circle back with that guy from Bulgaria that has those. See, this is what you guys don't see. There's a ton of spam posts in the forum that haven't been approved.
Nice.
So we have some cool options. That's definitely not something we were expecting when we started out this project. We thought the weapons were going to be the whole problem, and they were for a while, and then until all of a sudden they weren't.
Also, but this is not related to the demo project. Um, the function to break prefabs would be really cool.
What do you mean?
You, yeah, if you drag a prefab in the scene and then if you unlock it to make it a normal model.
Oh yeah, like to break a prefab.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely will. Yeah, that'll definitely get in there. We definitely need that.
And we also need flow graph support for prefab too, so we can self-contain the logic. I don't know if that's in or not. I haven't tested it.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
Yeah, but we are getting pretty close to. I mean, like there's like particles, and then I want to move all the culling into a compute shader, um, and then like the handful. I'm sure there's going to be like 20 other small things here and there, but they're not like major headlining features. They're just augmentations to what we already have, and that's going to be 1.0. So particles, I'm not planning anything super fancy. They'll be physically interactive. They'll probably exert force when they hit on something when they hit something, so they'll have a mass. But I'm pretty much they'll be run on a separate thread, but pretty much the same thing as we have in Leadworks. Do we have any requests for the particle system?
I guess like a collision hook. So if like again, if a particle hits something, you can say, okay, a particle hits something, do something where it hit or something.
We might already have that in Leadworks actually, but if we don't, like, then I can just work that
I don't
into
recall
the.
anything. I don't recall anything from Lightworks because again, like the particle. I think you had like access to the particle emitter, but not like the actual like particle itself.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll add we'll just use the normal entity collider hook, collision hook, and then we'll add an index for the particle index, or if we can repurpose something for something else, like the triangle index or something or whatever. I'll have to take a look at it.
Yeah, because I think like if you want to make like a plasma ball of the particle system and have that be the bullet, you can just use the collision on that.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, so we'll have like elasticity and other settings for the particles, so they'll either bounce or come to a stop or go sliding along the surface that they hit.
I got also some other ideas,
Mm-hmm.
which I was working with Godot the last few days for my work because we need a web application.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't like the workflow, but they have some cool things which maybe fit also good in Ultra. For example, you could create a procedural sky, so you don't need the sky boxes or anything else. And yeah, you can modify then the sky. For example, if you want to have a day and night cycle, you don't need four skyboxes for the states of the day. So you could just modify the sky color, and yeah, the environment is changing then also. You could maybe have a look to this.
I think Klepto is that like what Klepto's working on right now.
I'm not sure if Klepto's working on. I only see the water stuff, but yeah, something like procedural sky
Yeah,
would be
this
maybe
guy, this
also really cool.
his guys, he's got a system for that. It's like atmospheric scattering. It looks really nice.
Yeah, and also you have really good freedom, so yeah, you could make cool stuff with, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully, like, it sounds like, I mean, he's making good progress with his system, and hopefully we can just either integrate it into the engine, or if he wants to sell it as an add-on or to give it away for free as an add-on, I have no problem with that. Um, do you feel like that's an adequate? Is that what you had in mind, or are you looking for something else?
Yeah, this is what I had in mind. So,
Okay.
and
Um,
also the spline tool would be really helpful
Yeah. Well, we won't get
to
it in 1.0, but
to have
we will
cool
get it.
roads because at the moment my roads are only at the flat level, so it's kind of hard because they are brushes. Yes. But to have a tool to make cool roads which follow the terrain, for example, would be
Hmm.
really cool.
well, that also builds off the decal system because we couldn't have roads without decals.
Yeah, I think they're going to be like a modified decal. It has you have to have like a I have to add like shearing into it because
Right.
the roads because in order to make a curve you have to have these corners need to be pulled in. So I was kind of thinking like decals we might have like per vertex editing. I'm not sure. I'll have to or we might not. That might not even make
Um,
sense because the only thing you would use them for is
no,
curved roads.
well, not necessarily because in Source you can vertex manipulate overlays.
Yeah. Of course,
So
decals. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that in 3D though. You would only want to do it in 2D. So
yeah,
I'm not sure how that
I
would work.
think yeah, I think the road should be more like a brush or something like this.
What do you mean?
I,
well,
to have a flat surface. Because if you just apply a road to the terrain and you get bumps in there, you also get bumps in the road. You know what I mean?
You can well, okay. So you can what you can do is in Leadworks 2, we actually had a system where it would detect where roads were, and then it would flatten those the terrain there.
Ah, okay.
And then
I don't.
you can also use this will also work with displacement. So if the road is raised a little bit, it'll come out of the terrain. The geometry will just raise up as long as tessellation is enabled. If you have ruts and like potholes in the road, then you'll get those. I
Okay,
think the decal system will like a modified version of the decal system with a different. You need some kind of spline tool to create like curves and stuff because you don't want to set this up by hand. But I think it'll work really well.
yeah. Also,
um,
you could maybe add a modifier to the spline tool if you want to raise the terrain or if you want to lower the terrain, and then it would be cool. So you could lower the terrain and you could make also a river or something like this when you not assign a road or a decal to it.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be good for that too.
But yeah, the
That
river
would be
you
a little
could
bit
make
different
it flat.
because a river, you have like a flat surface.
But you can make so many things. I think with a spline tool, you also could make something like an pathing for AI or something like this,
Yeah,
where you can set up splines and then they follow along the splines and connect them, so you can
or for camera motion, like
yeah
setting up camera paths for like a
yeah. I
cinematic
think
kind of thing.
exactly. I think the spline tool would be useful in many ways.
Yeah, I agree. What I'll probably do is have like a creation mode. Like, okay, so like we have like the brush creation mode, which acts like this, and then we also have the entity creation mode that acts like this. And what I think I'll do is I'll implement a spline creation mode, and then any object that needs it can use that. And then you'll have down here you'll have like road, river, whatever else, and so it'll just be sort of like the it'll just be sort of
Mm.
a something that multiple things can use.
ropes and wires would be helpful too.
Yeah, yeah, that would be
And
very cool.
To circle back, and you remind me when you talk about the sky. Would it be can use allow support to modify the light's color in temperature, like light temperature in Kelvin, to get more natural light colors easier?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah, that would be because that would be great for like the sun and like very fluorescent stuff. And because I think because again I don't know why you would want your sun to be like right unless you're making like hell or something, but or green or
Or
something.
California during the wildfires.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, it's beautiful. Feel like I'm in Avatar.
Yeah.
cyberpunk.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm getting sick just looking at that.
Avatar was mating, by the way, with the Snowdrop engine.
What's that?
Avatar, the game, which was get released
Oh,
a few
okay.
months ago. was made with the Snowdrop engine.
Did they have any snow in it?
No.
Okay. So, um, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is like the LTT sponsor segues. You're gonna love this segue to our sponsor. Go ahead and press that like button if you would like to. You can even smash it, and don't forget to subscribe. And by the way, reviews on Steam are very, very appreciated very much. We have, if we can push that rate, we have like 15 reviews right now for Ultra Engine Pro. If we can push that number up to 20, I think it'll put us in the next category to where it'll be considered, like right now it says it's positive, the rating is positive. I think that'll push it up to overwhelmingly positive.
I think very positive.
Well, okay, that's the next one.
I think so.
Okay, cool. Well, that's still good. If we're able to do that, it will really help my case when I go to, like, once we have everything in place and I feel like, okay, we're really ready, this is really cool, then I'm going to go back to Valve and say, look, we have this engine that's going to be, it's really, really great for VR, especially because it's going to make, basically, we're going to fix the problem of all your VR games running slow. And we would really like to do a special sale like we did with Lightworks. And then the engine will make like the whole year's money in like one day. But if I can get everything in place before then, and one of those things is the rating on Steam. So your reviews are very much appreciated. It's really, really helps, and it helps the engine grow. Okay, that's all I've got. You guys both said you had a couple of things.
Yep.
And before we start, I need to take a break and grab half of my sandwich.
Okay.
So yeah, like 3 minutes, guys.
All right.
Dude, I can seriously like not even pick up my arms.
And that's sore.
I'm gonna be so shredded tomorrow. All right. No, I'm not sore yet. I'm just like lifting. Who knew that? Like lifting hedge trimmers out for several hours was so exhausting. Okay, repass the floor.
All right. Give me a second. Just want to help this person. Why aren't you sending? There we go. All right. I'm gonna share my screen. So last weekend I was experimenting with components and how that should work. So the goal really is we want people to just take a bunch of little things, and then with those little things build something like that, like should be very trivial. Like you shouldn't. No one person should build their own like door gate system, because that will just waste everyone's time. So right now I have a map here, and it has a camera so we can see what's going on. It has a lot of these empty nodes. You can probably it has a lot of these empty nodes, and each of these nodes, these pivots, have a component attached to them, and these are just logical components. So it doesn't matter if we see them or not. The point is that they just have to be functional. You could probably get away with just collapsing some of these, because you can add multiple components to a single entity in Ultra Engine, unlike Legworks. But Woo-hoo! I just did this way because it makes a lot more sense. So in this demo, I have two lanes here, and they get met here, and then they're gonna perform an output here. I'll run it real quick. Hopefully you can see this. All right. So here we are. So if I press the 1 key, I get a red sprite. If I press it again, it goes away. If I press the 2 key, I get a blue sprite. Press again, it goes away. Now if I press 1, and then if I press 2, I get now a green sprite. And if I untoggle 1, the green sprite goes away with the red, blue sprite goes away. So repeat that. If I take away the blue sprite, the red sprite stays. That's terrific. So how does this work? Well, it works with the FlowGraph system. So I actually made developer components that just take a key press with the number keys, because I didn't want to code the entire keyboard. That would be really annoying. And then I made also message components which just print a message. These are just developer. You probably don't want to like have these in your main game, but these are just great for like testing. So input 1 with the red sprite, I have it go through a switch. Now for the demo, it didn't really do anything. You can actually just link it directly to flip state here, but having a switch in between another component will allow you to turn this connection off. So let's say you have something up here, and you're like, oh, if this is like gets to a state, I want you to disable this, so when I press key 1, it doesn't turn the sprite on. But I just put it here for demonstration purposes. But what you can also do with switch is you can add a delay to it. So if you want something to happen but not directly right after, you can add a delay. So I'm going to add a 1 second delay here. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to run it again. And now I'm going to press 1, pressing 1. Now it appears. Press again. Now it goes away. So it adds a easy delay between the connection between the flow graph. You can enable it. Fast retrigger. Fast retrigger. So if you press it and then press it again, it will just fire the same output twice. If fast trigger is disabled, it will cancel any pending triggers, and it's kind of confusing. It's best just to leave it on for like simplicity, but there's a reason why it's here. And then only once, if it's only once, it will only fire once, and that's it. That's very useful if you have like an event that you want to happen, but only once. So instead of just disable it after an output, it will just stop. So that's switches. So there's also this thing called states and gates. So a state is a bool value. It's either true or false. So kind of like a button in Cyclone. If you press it, it turns on. If you unpress it, it turns off. And then if you can, so with a gate, you can actually link all these states together. And based on the condition here, which is and, then, nor, or XOR, X and nor,
Oh, cool.
it will with this link system, the gates and the states actually do like a handshake. So the states know what their gate is, and the gate knows what the states are. So every time the state changes, it tells its gate, I change where are you at? And then the gate goes, well, you're true and you're false. But I need both of you to be true to fire an output or to change the output. And that's how that works. So I just have an output called link. You probably want maybe in the future probably want a different way of doing this, but I just have a link output and input. And that just visually tells me, hey, this is not just a regular output. I need to link this with another node, or else it's not going to work correctly. And then the gate, based on the connection is met or lost, it will hide or disable the sprites, which have a visibility component, which just hides and disables sprites. And you know that everything here can be enabled, disabled, or toggled. That's because the base component class has an enabled bool, and I think that should be accessible to all components. Well, not all components, but at least the logic components, it should be accessible. So I'm going to change this to an OR. So now, if A or B, or state 1 or 2 is enabled, I should get the green sprite. So, and if they're both on, you get the green sprite. So that's pretty much the logic stuff of it. I also have other components. What do I have? I have the developer, I have the logic components. Oh, I also have a repeater. This is the timer. I had to rename it because we already have a timer class in the engine, so I'll call it a repeater. So this will fire an output. If I can find the stupid code right here. Logic. Yeah, so this will just fire an output every X amount of seconds. You can pause it, you can unpause it, enable, disable. So that's just so you have a tick every time. So it's a timer. Another component I want to add is an auto component. So based on whether the map reloaded, or the start function was fired, you can have another component up here, right? Let's say, and then if the map starts for the first time, you can say, okay, I need you to do this when the map starts, or when the map is reloaded or loaded in with the load function, it will fire an output when the load function is called. Because start is only called, I believe, when the map is loaded for the first time, but load is called every time the map is loaded. So the first time you load a map, start and load will fire, but when you reload a save or something, only load will be fired. So that's
Makes
something.
sense.
Yeah, that's a very simple component to do. But I also have the color changer here that does the whole flickering thing here. I kind of fixed it up. I want to use this guy's name, Dreadlock or whatever. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just blanking out. Yeah, he ported it to C++ from your Lua code, and I just went and cleaned it up to be more in line with everything going on, the I want all the component code to look the same, so no one's confused. This needs more TLC with the output overloading. So this way we can say, oh, we want it to flicker, but we only want it to flicker when like you bash the light switch. And I think like a input here saying like change style or something, like, oh, change style, make it flicker or make it not flicker or something would actually be beneficial. Instead of like enabling the style to be called on start. But
maybe it also makes sense. I'm not sure if it's possible that someone which is not owning the Pro version can actually use C++ components. I'm not sure if you want this.
Well, we are loading. Well, we can always convert everything to Lua later.
Yeah, but you would still have the double amount of work.
No, we just
It's not
that's
double.
AI.
Just paste
Yeah,
it
just-
into ChatGPT. It usually does a
Yeah.
pretty good job.
Yep.
And then you usually have to clean up afterwards, but it's still easier than writing it from scratch.
Yep. So that's pretty much all I have. The only other thing I want to touch on is how triggers should work, because triggers only work with the player controller, and we need a way for it to reliably detect physics objects, because that doesn't really work as well. Like if I want the collision trigger to like detect, oh, a box is here, a box entered, what do I do? Or and then do like in Cyclone, I did this with an AABB check, and then I had a vector container, and then all of it, and every time something entered or left that volume, it did a check. It was like, okay, something left my volume. What are all the objects I still have in my volume? And then it'll remove its reference from the vector. And then if all of them were gone, I actually had a separate output called like end touch all. And that means like nothing is in my trigger in the space anymore. I'm going to fire an output. I could do the same thing here. I actually did do a trigger that detected objects, but it did the whole ABB check every frame. And I think that should be done on the physics side instead of every frame. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it either way. It's not like super expensive to do that because the test for entities is optimized. But yeah, I could see how either way would be useful.
Yeah, because again, that's something I had to like kind of figure out when I was doing Cyclone for Lightworks. And the downside of using an ABB box is that the box has to be squared, because unless I am terrible at math. Like if you have like a cube and it was rotated 45 degrees, and then you had a trigger, but it was at like a weird angle or something. It would only detect the actual bounding box around the trigger brush. So even if the like cube was not technically touching or inside the brush volume, it was still in the ABB bounding box.
Yeah, it errs on the side of false positives rather than false negatives. So you'll never get a false negative. You'll never be missing an object, but it will include objects that you might not. I mean, it is within the axis aligned bounding box, but I understand like not the local.
So, yeah, which is good. I think what we need is a hybrid system. So let's say you have a cylinder brush, right? The collision for objects should be reliable. So and then and then when we do the on end touch system, it will use its bounding box.
Would it be much work to create an addition to the normal colliding system, just collider components?
Well, that's the thing I want. I want to be in the physics. The physics system right now has a hard time. Like it doesn't know what to do when it has to do when something is set as a trigger, and you tell the physics system, "Hey, when a prop meets a trigger, I need you to treat this as a normal trigger," because I don't think that the engine. I don't think Ultra Engines by default is set up like that right now. I think a prop will ignore a trigger.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. But if you force a prop to if you set a collision rule between a prop and a trigger for a trigger collision event, it doesn't know what to do. It gets confused.
No,
It fires
the idea is
outputs.
basically like you don't want your barrels opening doors.
Yes, but I think this should be. I think that should be set in the component. Like if you make a collision, like let's say I'm just gonna make this a collision trigger for. Like if I go collision trigger, right? I should have options here to say only like characters, props, debris, projectiles in here.
Like what
And then-
things it collides with.
Yeah. That should be on the component
That's
side.
interesting. Yeah, that would be a different way of doing things.
Well, so that's how Source does it. If you go to your flags and you say, all right, I want clients, I want physical objects, I want this,
they're not done as flags though. They're done as rules.
Yeah, I know.
So that might be a good. I don't know. Let me think about that. That would be a different way of doing it, but that might be a good idea.
Yeah, because right now, triggers only really work at the character control level, and I think Spider Pig was having the same issue because I think he wanted triggers to detect physical objects in his game too.
Yeah, I mean, you can just why not just set the object to use the player collision type, or override the collision rule. Just call set collision response.
I think it has to do with the collision, not really the collision rule, but I think it has to do with like the physics type or the collision, like rigid body and character body and all that. I think that's the issue.
No,
from what
I don't think that. I think if you just set the object to use the player type, then I think it'll just work. But I kind of like the idea of what you're saying about the bitwise flags for defining collisions. I want to think about that a little bit more.
No problem. Again, this is just something I should bring up because we're talking about logic components, and I didn't want to rewrite the collision trigger.
Yeah.
Without talking to you, but other than the auto component, there's some other components I want to do too, like logistical components I want to do too. I want to do like a random output. I want to do there's something in Source called logic case, but I don't think I can do that right now. Where you have, it's kind of like the gate and state situation, but you just have like it's like a switch kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like those train tracks, but you change like which lane the train's gonna go. So you make like, oh, if it's set to 1, it'll take this route. The flow graph will take, the flow graph will take this route. If it's set to true, it'll take this route. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a case.
By the way,
That's
you'll notice. I mean, you guys know this, but the appearance of the flow graph nodes has been updated. Might not be final, but they do. I think they do look pretty good.
Yeah.
and we have zooming.
Yep.
which
And
is
that's another
something
thing too.
What's that?
Um, I think it's best. Like, I really like the flow. Like, every output has an input, but it's kind of like weird if it's like both here. I think if the output and the input are the same, they should be like, they should only just be one text here, but then that might mess up the label here. So, because I make sure that everything like lines up perfectly. So it's like, oh, show. Because again, it's a flow graph. It's supposed to flow.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I don't want. I kind of don't want people to make like the rat's nest that people did in Legworks, where it was like wires everywhere.
We need borders for the flow graph to group something together visually.
Oh yeah, so you could just like.
And you want
Yeah,
you
I
want like
wanna-
a label with that?
Yeah, so you could just.
That'd be cool.
You could just like I want. Yeah, so we can just like I go and do it on the 2D grid. Like I want to be able just to like go like that and just select select it. And then I want to like press G or something, and then just make a group and just say, "Oh, this is part of the flow graph that does this."
I think you posted a screenshot from ID stuff. There is something like a group from their DK flow graph.
Let's take a look.
It's in the general channel. It's from today, 5. My time is for you and different. I can link it. Wait, I think I can copy the.
No, I posted 2 screenshots here, but they're not. These are just. I don't see anything like. This is just how it always looks.
Second.
Also, a bug: if you add something to the flow graph and you delete it, it will always appear. Like it gets stuck.
I posted here in this channel chat. So you have a color and the label and the headline.
Yeah, I don't think this is really like a group like what you're saying, but that does look pretty good. It would also be nice to have like have notes on it, like annotations.
Yeah. We just want to avoid that like rat's nest kind of situation.
Yeah, I think that's gonna happen no matter what. Have you guys?
Well, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen no matter what. But if there's
make
these
it manageable.
tools to help, yeah.
Yeah. What? So how many people have tried id Studio?
I don't have internals. I couldn't, but I did look at like the videos and did look at the documentation and everything.
Yeah.
Because
Anybody else? Okay. Yeah, it's I don't think it's very good. But there might be some good ideas in it. But like when I tried it, it was like 100 gigs to install it, and
it's like complicated.
It's not intuitive and the interface is ugly. But I couldn't figure out how to, like, I was looking, the most impressive thing to me, I mean, I think I think part of it is actually based on Radiant. Because I was looking at the, like, all I could get for the map editor was like a top-down view that looked exactly like the old Radiant Quake 3 map. But I don't know, there might be some, they have their technology, our engine is more like id's technology than anything else. And I do like a lot of the things they've done. There might be some good ideas in there, but they could certainly make it more user friendly.
So one thing I want to ask is, how do you like this approach to map logic?
I think it's great. I think this could be extremely useful. So 2 questions. One is, how do flow graph arguments affect this? Would you design it differently if you had flow graph arguments right now?
It will allow me to create more like the case system, like the track, like I'll be like, oh, like this is like like, oh, like when this happens, make the track go to track 2. So when you press this button, now this happens instead of this door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the light flicker, the color changer component, I would just set that to a light, and then when you press the button or whatever, you say set type, and then you can change it to like the flicker pattern you want in the flow graph editor.
Mm-hmm. And then my second question is, what do you want to do with this?
I want to do what I did in WinSource. I want to create modularized contraptions, is the best way to put it. And I want to use like very simple components and build an elaborate thing, prefab it, and then reuse it throughout the levels.
Well, what I mean is, are you gonna release this, or how do you want to release it?
Well, I was hoping it would just be part of the, like, when we work in Xform, kind of made for Xform, but
you want it to be integrated into the engine?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm also
that'll probably work out.
Yeah, I just need your feedback if there's like a better way to, like, for like linking. So instead of having a properties tab here and you have to like drag and drop, that's how we did in Cyclone. I do like this approach. We just link it. You just like, okay, gate will go to state, and then this looks so much cleaner. Otherwise, if I did do like an entity thing here, and I went to my gate and I dragged my states into an entity field here, the flow graph would just look like this, and then it's like, oh, what does this link to? You know what I mean? So I actually like the visual.
Yeah, I think we can. What we can do is like just start like a logic section for the components, and then just add these in one at a time.
Yeah,
and just do it gradually and start with like the simplest situations first.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do after this conversation, I'm going to push what I have and just look at it and just say, okay, the switch is perfect, or I like the idea of the key hit stuff because it's great for testing things. This way, you don't have to make a first person character to like see if something works. You know, print message components useful, even though you can't really see the output with the editor. That's kind of annoying, but whatever. Visibility, you can
probably change that. I mean, we could have like another tab down here for the game's output and display it there. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, because although I think I set Xform to go to linker, what is it? System. I have it set to console. So if I launch it from here, I get the console. But if you launch it from the editor, you don't get the console.
Yeah.
So
we could do that.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna push what I have, and one thing I also want to take another look at is how. Oh, before I go that, custom icons. You hinted at them, and I would like that support. So this way, when I look at this, I know what's a switch and what's a state and what's a gate and what's.
What if it has two components that have two different icons?
I think then it will just like not. Then just show its entity. But if it's just a pivot and it just has a component to it, I think like, oh, this is like.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Like. Because in your
I mean, like if you had something that was like a sound emitter, then you would see like a little speaker. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, because I just copy and paste this and just replace, because I actually would like that instead of seeing a bunch of like bees everywhere.
Yeah,
which would be very annoying.
That would be nice, and it would also like give you a nice visual cue in the everywhere, really.
Yep. And another thing I want to rethink about is how sound should work. I like the idea of the sound material idea I brought up to you a while back, but at the same time, like, I don't want to overcomplicate things because I actually do like I think the ambient noise component should take both a sound file or a sound material file.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just a sound file, then these will be applied. But then if you load a sound material, then these act as overrides, if that makes sense. But I just need to figure out like what will count as an override, or maybe there should be two separate components, like one for just basic sound, playing sounds in 3D space, and the others to load sound materials. Because I like the idea of sound materials because you don't need to use the editor to modify a sound, and you can support like random sounds. So every time it plays a new sound, like footsteps, or maybe you have like a dripping pattern where you don't want to use the same sound over and over, you just say, this sound material has variations of this type of sound, and every time...
It sounds like that might be a job for a prefab.
Or it could just be a component where...
Yeah.
I wrote the component, I just want... So maybe the ambient noise should just be how you have it here, is just a simple play a sound. But then I can make like another one where it's actually is a little bit more in depth, where instead of loading a sound file, you load a JSON file, and the JSON file takes care of it. But at the same time, I feel like it should just be one. But I don't know, just something to think about. But
yeah, once like the particles are done and we're getting like closer and closer to 1.0, then we'll be able to like give this kind of stuff our full attention.
Yeah, and also we need I think the base component should have the base component class should have a use function override or a interact override where it's just an empty function, but every component has it. So if like you want to use it for for a first person player when they like interact with buttons or switches, you can put that to the use function, and then in the player component you just say, all right, there's a component in front of me, fire the use function on that component.
In Lua it's very easy because you can just check to see if the function exists. In C++, it's a bit... everything has to be strictly defined. I guess you could have like a function pointer stored in an STL map, and you could check to see if that function exists. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. But maybe we should just have like a base, have those things like built into the base class, and that might be a good idea. I'd say probably.
Yeah, but again, I'll push what I have, and you can take a look at it. And maybe you can think about how it should actually look, because what I have right now kind of just are in the confines of what the system is today.
Yeah,
but
I'd say would like look for things first that are not going to change when flow graph arguments are added.
Yeah,
because I don't want to add anything in that changes later.
Yeah, so my states and my gates, besides visually like the list link system is just an output and input. Maybe that could be something else or look different. But other than that, this is pretty much, besides like the overall like aesthetics of it, I think this is pretty much how I would do it.
To be honest, I never used the flow graph. I just do everything with code. But I think some basic components like we did this would be really good for the users. which are actually using the flow graph.
Yeah, and it's also good if
But you should think about also that there are users which are not using the flow graph at all. Oh, yeah, you shouldn't design the classes too much for the flow graph, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really depends on the type of game.
oh, I don't know. The idea is that it's allowing someone to build something out of a lot of smaller things.
No, I
So
like it. I like it. I think it's good. Not everybody's going to use it, but I definitely actually I totally agree with you. I
Yeah, it's
just
really
you
cool
know
what you
I'm
did.
not 100% sure on all the details.
yeah, again, we're taking we're taking something that was like very limited in scope from Leadworks, and we're trying to like figure out, you know, the best way to extend it and the best way for it to, be reusable. We want people to use the flow graph kind of thing. We want modularity. We want people to make things out of like base engine components and then just upload them and be like, oh, here's my contraption for a door, or here's my contraption for
Yeah, but
uh
it's again, so it's hard to say we want people to use the flow graph because for some certain of games you just simply cannot use a flow graph at all. For
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
if you make an open world game or something like I do, how much nodes you want to have in this one flow graph? It's getting messy, really, really hard. So I think I got already 1,000 entities or something in the scene.
Yeah, but
And also, if I would do this with Flowgraph, 2 weeks later I wouldn't know what every function is doing. So
you know, the,
yeah,
the the thing about open world games is they tend to rely on emergent behavior between different entities that have different like AI behaviors. Um, I think the flow graph is sort of more for a game that's a little bit like smaller in scale, where you're going through a level and there's this sequence of events. That's where it really, really shines. And I know this will definitely get heavily used because people used it a lot. And like some people, actually, a lot of people made games in Leadworks just using the flow graph. So I see it as like there's kind of three levels of usage. There's the flow graph is the most basic level of usage, and we want to make it so people can get as much done with that. And then the second layer is the components programming, and then the third
yeah,
layer is sort of the whole programming. And some
yeah,
people exist at different levels, and just do whatever they're comfortable with.
and I think the flow graph will help people start thinking like programmers because the source IO system made me start thinking like a programmer. Oh, when this happens, then this happens, and then if this is going on, then I want you to do this.
it's it's hard to say. But if you have no clue about programming at all, then you should maybe not start to make a game. Yeah, I don't know,
Ultra
but
Engine. Don't start if you don't even
no,
start
it
you have no
sounds kind of
clue.
hard. But when I stream, I got some people in. They ask me what are variables, and the next question is, oh, I want to make an open world game. You think I can do this? What should I tell them? For example,
What did you
if
tell
I
them?
stream, yeah, no, don't do it. Learn to program first. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
game development's in like at least for me, it was a rabbit hole because all I wanted to do was make portal maps, and then I had to like learn like about the BSB tree, and I had to learn about like texture mapping, and I had to learn about like how to like make it so how to make a Portal 1 button, how do I make it open a test chamber door, and how do I and then it became like, oh, now I want to add custom textures, now I want to add custom models, now I want to make custom elements. How would I do that? And to
I
me, it
get
was
you.
just a rabbit hole. Like I just kept digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper into it.
I got you what you're saying, yes. But
Welcome to the
again,
bottom.
a game in the end is also a software, so you need at some point to
Yeah,
know how to program and how
yeah,
to, yeah, it's I don't know,
You're
yeah.
both
But
right.
kind of hard.
yeah,
You're
I
both
just
right.
think
You're
this.
just coming at it from different angles.
Yeah, I just think this is more great for smaller things like buttons and like game events. But if you're making like an open world game and there's a lot going on and like maybe you can use a little bit of flow graph, like, oh, if this button happens, then if if the player like hit slashes the button breaks and then sparks fly out, and then you can self-contain that in a prefab. So it's not in the scene flow graph, but it's in the prefab flow graph, and it'll just be a few nodes, and that's it. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I think you're on
my
the right track with this, and I think it would definitely be useful to integrate like some logic components into the editor for everybody to use. I think it's a very good idea. So thank you very much, Reap Blue and Andy. I believe you have some things to talk about.
Yeah, nothing big. I just want to show you what I mean with the button up event and something with the prefabs.
Okay, so should this be? Do you want to put this in the video, or is this
We can do it
just?
without the video. With the video, it's on you.
Um, I guess if it's just a technical discussion, then let's wrap up the video, and then we can continue this.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us this week for
yep.
another exciting episode, and I will see you on the forum. Let me stop the video now.